Welcome to Lost in Translation with Bobby Martin. I'm Bobby's co-host, as always, Sam Perkins. We're in our home base, the WCTV studios in Wilmington, Massachusetts today, and this is our 50th episode for Bobby. Bobby, congrats on the big 5-0.
You know what, the big 5-0, man. We're getting old. We are elders now, right?
We are. We are, and we've got a return guest in Brandeis men's basketball head coach Gene Bain, and we are joined with star player Toby Harris, Division III All-American, am I correct? Mm-hmm. Who has just signed to use up his 5th year of eligibility at Iona, Division I level. And I think one of the really amazing things and remarkable things is Gene. I'd been wanting to get Gene back on and get Toby on. And then Gene reached out after the signing, is like, hey, can you get, are you still interested? Absolutely. But you don't typically see a coach who loses their best player during this era to a higher level school be like, hey, I want to come promote this kid. I want to do something with it. So that really stood out to me. I feel like that's kind of what coaching is about at its core, because I think what we all grow up thinking is coaches are people that are mentors. They're people that have our best interests in mind. They're people that want us to get to the highest level we can, to excel, get the most out of our abilities, all that sort of stuff. But the reality is a lot of coaches are, once you get to the college level, it's not like that. They don't want to lose their best kids. They're not happy about their best kids leaving. And so that was pretty remarkable to me. So guys, thanks for joining us. And just right off the rip, sort of like, Gene, tell me a little bit about that, the feeling that you have of wanting to still sort of promote Toby and his accomplishments, even though he's leaving you. He's your best, arguably your best. I would say your best player. Probably, coaches maybe don't want to say define anyone as but he was the star. Absolutely. He's the All-American, and he's got a year left, and he's going somewhere else. And so, what made you decide that you still want to do something to promote him?
Yeah, I think when you talk about this day and age, coaching and the dynamics of it, you try to get great young people with great high character, families high character, and obviously Toby's at the top of the list. I was just telling Bobby, throughout the recruiting process when we first started recruiting Toby, obviously he's a talented young man, so he had some Division I interests. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of our selling points was, you come here and you do well, that means we're doing well, and if you're good enough and you want to go to a higher level, we're going to help you do that. So I think obviously I'm a man of my words, and Toby's been loyal to our program inside and out. So when you put all those things together, those are the kids that you root for. The guys that understand what this is truly about. So we never, as coaches, I've never made this about me. I want to get the right people, the right kids, and I want them to do well. And as a coach, you have to accept the dynamics and how college basketball is moving nowadays. So once we get them, we want to develop them. Yeah, do we want to keep them? Absolutely, but we understand that everybody has a goal, everybody has something they want to reach, and I'm just so happy for Toby that he was able to attain that.
It's an amazing dynamic that you've got to deal with now. I mean, we're basically still in the beginning process of this, the genesis of the whole thing with the NIL. Toby, I'm wondering, for the kids out there listening right now, what were some of the emotional things that you went through in deciding this process? Now, I understand, you've had your 4 years, you've got a great degree from Brandeis, and now you had the opportunity to go back if you wanted to, but now you decide to get paid. All right. So, what were your thoughts going through that type of process?
No, I mean, obviously I had a great 4 years at Brandeis, and there's not a lot of NIL at that level.
Okay.
But me and my family have always been big on just the basketball part. Like, as big as NIL is today, and, I think paying guys is good, and it's gotten a little out of hand at some points. But, me and my family's kind of main 3 things were just finding a place where I fit. The money was kind of on the back burner. That's kind of how I was raised. And, my belief is, if you're good enough and, money's your goal, it'll come eventually. So I really wasn't too focused on, finding a place that's going to, give me the hundreds of thousands of dollars, where I might just be sitting on the bench. My my end goal is always to play and help a team win. So, but there was definitely, you hear a lot of voices from the outside, like, oh, this school is going to give you that, this school is going to give you this. But, I think at the end of the day, even if it's, not the big dollar sign you wanted, if a school really wants you, I think, the main thing is just always go where you're wanted and go where you feel appreciated, I would say.
You mentioned earlier that, once you started the process, you heard from a bunch of schools, but as soon as the Division I portal opened up, many of those schools dropped off. You said that Iona was the school that really kept in touch with you and let you know that they wanted you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, all credit goes to them. The coaching staff really, put a belief in me and showed that they care, which is really big for me. Obviously coming from a coaching staff that took a chance on me out of high school and showed that they care. So that's definitely a big part of my decision. But yeah, man, being a D3 guy, sometimes you get thrown on the back burner. You try to let them know D3 guys can hoop too.
You're mentioning a D3 guy, and just as an aside, your freshman year, I did a little video work for Gene. I was around the team. I did some stuff, so I got to see you as a freshman. And I was texting someone that was a long-time sort of guy connected at the America East level, Division I, lower level. And I was like, he knew who Gene was, really well. Gene obviously was a well-known person in the America East level from his playing days and then from his coaching days at New Hampshire. And I was like, man, I went in and I did some video work for Gene at Brandeis, and like, there's some guys on this team that like, these guys, they look like Division I guys. I was like, especially they got this freshman. I have no idea what he's doing at this level. 6'8", jump, skilled, could shoot it from outside. Like, did not look like a Division III player at all. I mean, you're skinny, but like you see skinny, get bouncy guys at Division I level. I mean, Rashad Bell was skinny as hell at BU, and he. Very similar skill set. You're a better outside shooter than this guy, Rashad. Rashad had a little bit more of an inside game, but like, how did you? We're gonna kind of go around a little bit on your history and everything, but Gene, like, how did you get him? And did you think when he got on campus, were you like, man, like how did I get him at Division III level, or was it like how does that happen? You get a talent like that at a Division III team?
Yeah, I think when Toby came in, obviously he, like you said, he was super talented, but he wasn't strong, and he still was growing into his body, and he still had to figure out, what it takes to be a college player. I think there's a lot of talented kids out there, but I think the biggest thing is college is so different than high school. The practices, the physicality, the time commitment. So I think Toby had to understand that, what it was going to take to be a college player. And I think he found out his first year. Because I always told him, I said, I think you have the ability to play it at a higher level, but there's a lot of guys with ability. What are you willing to do? Like, how much work are you willing to put in it? So I think it was after his freshman year, and that spring, I mean, he was in the gym every single day. He's lifting twice a day. He's getting shots up on the gun. Like, you come into the office and you look down, he's the guy shooting. So now you're like, okay, he's starting to get it. He's starting to put it all together. So, and then obviously sophomore year was a first team All-League guy, had a tremendous sophomore year. So, I think Toby had to understood what it takes to get to that level. So he had to understand the process. And I think, once he understood that, it was every single day. Like, people think this just happened overnight. Nah, he's in the gym all the time. Like, there were times I had to kick him out the gym because I said, are you going to class? Like, is there academics here? Jokingly, but no, he literally put in the work every single day. I think that's the beauty and the reward of, watching him grow into who he is today, and obviously going to the next level. There's no magic. There's no secret. What you put in, you get out of it.
Gene, I wanted to ask you. You have mentored Toby through this process, letting him know that you can fight for this, and maybe one day it'll happen.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know, as a coach, what are you looking for when another school what are you looking for from that other school that calls and asks about Toby? I mean, are you the bullshit detector? I mean, can you, what's the process of you going through that? Do you see it right away?
Yeah, I think, and I told Toby this when he was going through it, like, be transparent, I'm transparent with the coaches, you know, because they'll ask me what he does well, what he doesn't do well. And I'm making sure that I'm going to be totally transparent with them because I don't want to put him in a tough situation where they do take him. And I said, well, he's great at this and he's not great at that. So I think every single coach that I talked to, you know, him and I had, you know, great dialogues while he was going through the process. I said, I'm going to be honest, but there's also a lot of film out there in terms of our synergy. So, you know, the coaches were very honest as well in the process. Every single school I talked to about Toby, they were very, very transparent. I think that, to me, that was the most important piece. And I think Toby handled it like a very mature guy. Like, I'm one of the guys that told him, I think you can get more money. And he said, Coach, man, like, I appreciate that, but I want to go somewhere where I'm wanted, where they care about me, and where I fit in, because I want to play and help the team win. Mm-hmm. So I think his approach, you don't see that, you know, in terms of the transfer thing, because everybody's trying to get the best financial situation. You know, I think, you know, playing and winning, a lot of people don't talk about that in the process, right? So Toby just had a great outlook on what he wanted in the schools that he wanted to be recruited by. And honestly, it was really all him. I just, you know, I was just somebody he could lean on, or the coaches could reach out to me and talk to me about him. But it was all him in terms of how he handled it.
So Toby, tell me a little bit about, like, when did it start with you in the game of basketball? Like, we talk to different people, they get into it all the time. You see Bobby was a high school All-American, you know, 6'9", certainly in any era, but especially the, you know, you can list whatever you want, could have put 6'10", 6'11", no one would have scoffed at that, given some of the guys that are listed up there. You know, just mountain of a person, 16-year pro career, highest levels. Bobby didn't really get into hoops until, you know, almost high school. He was like really into theater. So it starts at different times for everybody. Like, where did you grow up and how did the basketball come to be sort of one of your things?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I probably had a ball in my hands as soon as I was allowed to be at the house. My dad played for 2 years at UC Davis when they were D2, and he kind of grew up all over. But, you know, I mean, I was born in California, but I grew up in North Carolina, and you know, we call it the hoop state down there. So basketball is big, especially growing up in Chapel Hill and Durham. You have Duke and UNC. Go Heels. But yeah, I mean, I've always had a basketball in my hand. I played a bunch of sports growing up, you know, soccer. You know, my parents really pushed me to be active and be outside. You know, I wasn't really inside on the TV a lot. But it really wasn't until probably my 8th grade year where I was like, I only want to play basketball. This is what I love. And then probably after my sophomore year of high school, I was like, I want to do this for real after high school. And my dad, I mean, all credit to him. He's a great basketball mind. I think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. He's a high school coach now, but I mean, he studies the game at tremendous levels. And, you know, he would work me out. And then, you know, I have 2 guys back home, Mike Jones and Sean Billerman, that really, you know, help, you know, push my development. And then COVID happened. So that was kind of my recruiting process, was just COVID. And so it was a little weird, you know, no one could come watch me play. And I definitely didn't pass the eye test as a, 6'7", 6'8", 170-pound kid that really wasn't showing his athleticism and wasn't strong enough to do anything but really shoot. So, I mean, like they said, there was a couple of Division I schools sniffing around, you could say, but no one was really serious. And, you know, my parents and my circle have been great in telling me, always go where you're wanted. And, you know, I ended up choosing Brandeis, and I don't regret a thing. So,
you know, it sounds like you've had some wonderful people in your life, followed up by, you know, Gene finding you and you guys having a great relationship. But I've got a question. Maybe it's the Brandeis education. I think I heard you say, go Heels.
Go Heels.
Did you mean go Gales?
Well, I'm a Tar Heel fan, but go Gales now. Go Gales now.
Okay, go Gales now. No, but seriously, you know, when you talk about NIL, name, image, and likeness. So your name, Tobin.
Tobin.
Right?
Tobin, that's correct.
But tell me about it. What does, you know, and I like to ask this question because I'm wondering, what does your name mean to you? What does your image mean to you? What likeness do you want to project for kids that may be looking at doing the same things that you've just accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, technically my name is Tobin, even though I go by Toby. Yeah, I mean, I think, just in how I was raised, I always want to portray the image of the right thing. I'm not somebody who's going to go, try and find a place with all the extra stuff and, oh, you can have this money, you can have this car, all that stuff. If it fits, if it works, it's right. So I think, I'm a guy who, like, he mentioned probably gave me a little extra, but, I'm always going to work in the gym. It's how I was raised. I wasn't really given anything in terms of the game of basketball. I had to, aside from my height, but, I didn't really grow up big, so I had to really work for everything. And, being kind of an undervalued kid, and especially in the changing landscape of the game of college basketball, I feel like everyone's going to get undervalued now. So, I mean, I'm just, I'm trying to portray someone who's, never really going to give up, keep fighting, and keep working in the gym because, at the end of the day, I think it was Kevin Durant or someone, hard work always beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So
I'm really curious about, I always love the journey that people have and sort of where it begins, and hoops is such a, I just think it's my favorite sport at this point. It's funny because it's not the sport that I managed to make it to the highest level in, but just always come back to the game and how beautiful. And when I think back on it, I'll think back, not high school or college, but like where it sort of began. And Gene and I have talked a lot about, because we both grew up in, he lived in Cambridge for a bit where I'm from. He moved to Medford, not that far away. And the scene for us growing up was like, it was really before AAU blew up. AAU wasn't until you were in high school and you really made it. There were only like 4 teams back then that you could play on. But like the community scene, the rec scene, the street, pickup scene was huge. Up here in Mass, in the summertime, everyone gets out or they did get out on there's certain courts you go to and you'd have to wait for hours. You'd have grown men, college players, everyone there. In the winter, it's like you had to either find a YMCA league or a CYO league when you're little, somewhere inside, or like, have a key to a gym, or someone that would rent out the gym and just let them come in. But in North Carolina, I mean, it's basketball country, but I'm wondering, like, what was the basketball scene like down there growing up for young kids? Like, where did you play? Where did you really start getting out there? And is it inside? Is it outside? Is it, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the changing nature of the game. People don't play outside anymore. But there's definitely some courts you could go to. I mean, there was some right outside the Dean Dome that occasionally some former current UNC guys would come out and play. But yeah, I mean, it was, especially when you're younger, you find a YMCA, there's a community center where there's pickup. But I mean, even now, like when I go back home, no one plays pickup anymore. Everyone's at the AAU scene. I'm lucky enough to, have a place where a guy trains a bunch of college and pros, and we get them together and play. I mean, it's a little more organized than just regular pickup, but it's up and down and all that. But yeah, I mean, I played AAU. I mean, it's exploded now, and it's everyone plays AAU. But I mean, I never played for a crazy travel team. I was a local kid, played for the Carolina Flyers. But yeah, I mean, no one plays outside anymore. You find a YMCA. The Durham Y has good pickup. But, I mean, it is North Carolina, so you go anywhere inside a gym and someone's playing. So,
I'd like to touch on something. It's a question for both of you. So, I think everyone in here understands that hard work. They say, well, you got to work hard, but hard work is required. It's not something that you should get a pat on the back for. Exactly. Okay, that's a requirement.
Exactly.
All right.
Yep.
So, a lot of the kids today, I'm not going to say that they don't work hard, because I think if you love this game, you're going to go out here and work hard. So maybe working smart would also be part of that equation. Mm-hmm. But my question is, as a coach and as players, what kept you going when hard work wasn't enough? Because there are times when we fail, and the failure could be in our perception of, we're under so much pressure to either post We're under pressure to perform, right? So you've got all these different things coming at you, right? And you're trying to figure it out. And as hard as you work, it just doesn't seem to be happening. Now, most people say stick to it, okay? But what about when it's not enough? What about when you don't get the answers you want? How do you handle that? What's your philosophy on that? Because the psychology of the game is going to mess with you anyway, right? There are too many things coming up too many times.
Yeah.
So what's your philosophy on how you handle those moments?
For me, it's always been about the love of the game. I just always go back to that. Even when I was coming up and I didn't play in this tournament or that tournament, and I went home and, you're down, then you take the ball and just go shoot, right? For me as a coach, it's like, okay, I come in the gym, we're not getting the results we want, so now I got to go back in the film room and watch more tape. So for me, it's always been about the love and the drive of the game. And, I try to tell my guys, have that approach to every single thing that you do, right? Because you're going to get a job that you're going to go to work and you might not love that job. It might be frustrating, but you got a family, you got rent, right? You got to pay the bills. So you have to have something that you can go back to. So for me personally, it's always been the love. And every single day I feel blessed to be the coach at Brandeis. Every single day I feel blessed that I'm doing something that I don't really consider work. It's something that I love to do. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I don't really know anything other than basketball. I feel like, and same thing he said, when things aren't going right, it's always, I just go in the gym when no one's there and just put the ball in the basket. But I also think, I've been through a lot of times, especially in my career, when I feel like I'm working my tail off and, nothing's working.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for me is just, I read a book, if I'm not mistaken, it was Atomic Habits, and it talks about, goal setting and, systems, and how sometimes when you set goals, but you don't have a system in place, once you reach that goal, it kind of, if you don't have the right systems, you're not going to go any further. So I think that's been big for me as I've gone through my career. I had goals and, play college basketball, do this, do that. But I don't know if I really had the right systems in place. And now, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've created those systems, and kind of the goals haven't gone out the window, but, it's kind of just an afterthought at that point. So, I feel like I always rely on my systems and know that even if I didn't reach my goal at this point in time when I wanted to, my system's eventually going to push me either to that goal or past it. So,
it says so much more about who you have to become instead of, I would say, what you are. It's always an evolving process, because those trials and tribulations always come. And just listening to you two, I think that anybody listening to this podcast right now is getting a great lesson on what it takes. I don't know, I think my coach used to call it stick-to-itiveness or something like that, right? But man, it says a lot about the who you are, and how much you're willing to fight. I think Sam and I had spoken about that one time. Just like you said, Gene, it's the love of what you're doing. That keeps you going. That would be your North Star.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I know obviously, a lot of times people think college or any sport that it's roses and butterflies. Like he's freshman year, he had moments. He'll tell you, he didn't want to play. Right. It's moments of discomfort, right? As a coach, you're trying to get the best out of that particular young man or whoever it is, and there's going to be times where they might leave the gym, they might not want to come back, right? But again, what's going to drive you back, right? It's the love of the game. It's the fact that you understand where that coach is trying to take you. And I think when you're young, you don't understand that. And there's a lot of kids now that don't understand that. They, like you said it, you just said it. Hard work is required. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think now hard work, you're supposed to get rewarded, right? It's required. It's the other things that you do, right? So, this guy, like I said, he's freshman year, he went through a lot. And I'm sure there were people that telling him that, hey man, you shouldn't be a Brandeis coach. It's too hard on you. Right. Hey, but now this is the finished the process, right? So that's why I say you got to be able to take coaching in college or any sport or anything you do, because you got to understand the end game. You got to understand the whys the coach is pushing. So for that, I really appreciate, him. That's why I think he's a special young man as well, because he could have,
Gene, I want to ask, what was your initial scout on Toby, and what did you see that made you like, this is a kid I want to offer a spot to? Because even the Division III level, like there are far more great high school hoopers that cannot find any level spot to play at the next level. You're very selective.
Yep.
What was it initially that you were like, this is a kid who's worth? And at Brandeis, a school like Brandeis that is an elite academic school that is, it's like hard work is required. Also, like, you don't have any room for kids to come in and be a problem. Like at the high Division I level, where, let's all be real here.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in the real world. Like, if you make a certain amount of money on your basketball program, you have a certain amount of room to cover crap up and to deal with headaches if it's bringing in tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for you. You have no wiggle room for that at Brandeis. So you have to they need to be able to play, they need to be able to play for you, and they need to be able to get it done in the classroom and not get into bad stuff out during the downtime. What was it about Toby that you're like, this is a kid I want to give one of my only, 15 spots or however many you can carry?
It was the Zoom. It was like when we Zoom with him and his family. It was like, as a coach, you can tell right away, right? When you talk to a young man and you talk to their families, you can tell right away what they're all about. And Toby's mom and dad, just terrific people. And when we Zoom with them, their first thing, they just wanted him to get a good education. So basketball wasn't really like the focus, right, for them. But for me, it was like, okay, he's already got that mindset. He wants to get a great education. But I see a 6'8" skill guy that if we can get him in a weight room, right, we can develop him on the court, he has a chance to be a really good player. And that's kind of what happened. But it also was all about, how much does he want it? And I think his freshman year, he struggled with that a little bit. But like I said, I think once he figured it out, like, hey, man, I could be pretty good. I see what coach is talking about, and the sky was the limit. And he went to every class, never an issue off the court. I mean, I think the guy goes to bed at 8 o'clock at night, plays video games every night. So when I went to bed, I could lay my head with ease. So for him, all the boxes checked, in terms of a guy like that taking a chance on him. He's 6'8", skill. He's got no off the court issues. Terrific family. That's a total home run for a coach. But unfortunately, you don't come across like guy like that, all the time. That's the problem.
So being at a Division III school like Brandeis, which is a great program, I mean, I think you've done an amazing job there, especially with, the academic rigors that, and priorities that Brandeis, asks of its students. How do you go about just communicating with your players on, the importance of maintaining their academic standards, playing great ball, and at the same time knowing that if they play well in this day and age, that your roster can be changed in a heartbeat?
Yeah. It's just we set a standard. We set a standard for them. Like, what do you want to be? Do you want to come here and treat this like like just something you do for fun, or do you want to come here and put in all the work and on the court, off the court, in the community, be a great teammate, just be involved, be bought in 100%. And I think that's the message we try to tell our guys. And some guys, they don't do that. And those usually aren't the guys that end up making it, But the guys that buy into what we're trying to accomplish and living up to that standard, you see them in the gym every single day. You see them in your office every single day. They're coming in watching tape. They're grabbing assistant coaches. During the season, they want to get extra work in. So for you as a coach, it makes your job easier every single day, walking in that office and walking in practice knowing that, hey, you got a group of guys that want to get better every single day. And I think that's the hard part to do at every level, is to find 15 guys that all are on the same page within what you're trying to accomplish.
So, Toby, I'm curious now. I sort of asked Gene the question in reverse. You're a guy, I know you said, oh, well, the only thing you had going was, that you were taught. Like, I'm gonna be real here. Like I saw the first practices, I saw the first game. I think your first career points were a dunk. I know that I got your first dunk on video. I'm pretty sure that was the first
Great
career
memory.
points. Man, it's up here. The things I remember sometimes.
Riviere's Chandler.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it was a dump off and just. So you had, if not, you said some Division I interest a little bit, which means there were definitely other schools that were on you at the D3 level, D2 level. What was the differentiator? Gene explained what made him say, yep, this is a guy I want to take a chance on, because every player's a chance. It's still a roll of the dice. You never know. For you, you're in North Carolina. What was it that made you go, all right, this school outside of Boston, a Jewish school at that, which, it's not many Jewish schools out there. It's a very small percentage of the population. That could be daunting or different to someone. What made you say, this coach and this school is where I want to go?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned the education piece. My parents are both teachers. So it's always been got to get a good education because the ball is always going to stop bouncing eventually. So that was a huge piece. And then, I couldn't really visit schools, but me and my dad came up here and we got breakfast with Coach Bain and Coach Rubenstein, who's since at Middlebury now. And, it was like these guys really care about me. They see my potential to probably more than I even did at that time. And, I wanted to go a little away from home, but not too far to where I was, my parents could never come see me play. So that was part of it. But yeah, I mean, it was a program that was being built. It wasn't something that, had already been, a great program for many, many years, and I was coming in and have to. So I get to come in and help be a part of a building program, and I thought we had a chance to win a lot of games and continue to set the standard for Brandeis. And being outside of Boston isn't bad. I'd never really been to Boston, so there was a lot of factors, but the education and just the belief from the coaching staff is what kind of turned the tables, I would say.
How does the recruiting process work in this NIL period? Because I know, coming out of high school, you get 48 hours or whatever it is to be on campus. And you say you couldn't really visit campus this time. So did you visit other schools? Did you, or was it just talking on the phone? Is it a one day? Do you stay overnight? I mean, what's the process?
In the transfer portal, I visited Iona, and I stayed overnight there. But, that was the only school I visited. I went there, and I was like, oh, this is the place for me. But, out of high school, it was, COVID was probably the main issue. But, we came to Brandeis and we walked around, but we couldn't go in any of the buildings.
Really?
Yeah, because
it was right. It was when everything was shut down.
Everything was shut down because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I never really had a visit experience really until Iona, and I visited there and it was the place for me. But the recruiting process is, it really depends on how badly they want you. If I'm being honest, out of high school everything was virtual on the phone. And then it's kind of same thing in the transfer portal. I was, phone calls, Zoom calls, and all that stuff. Everyone says, oh, we're interested. And then, you wait a couple weeks and you find out who really is because they're still texting you, they're still calling you every day. So
how, Gene, maybe you can answer this. How long are you allowed to be on campus now?
It's still 48 hours. I think it's changed though. You have guys that go on campus for a day.
Right.
Because while you're going out, they got somebody else coming in. And they're telling you, hey, if you don't make a decision before this guy leaves, that spot might not be in the table. So the whole dynamics of the whole recruiting process has changed so much in the NIL. You got guys that they'll say, hey, we're going to offer you a spot, but you can't visit. We're going to offer you X amount of money in a spot, but you can't visit. And if you visit, it's off the table.
That's
the whole dynamics has changed. So it's like now, like Toby said, he was smart when he got in the portal early. Him and I were having discussed, like Toby, because Toby and I talked about this a year ago, going into his senior year, that we knew that he's gonna finish this year, he's gonna graduate, and then he's gonna try to go play somewhere higher. So that was the great thing about him and his family, just the transparency that we had. So it wasn't like, oh man, Toby's after the season is leaving. I already knew where things were going to go. So my thought process, hey, man, I know how this works. You got to get in there. And, he listened and coaches were calling. I was taking like 5-6 phone calls a day. And same with him. So He handled it the right way for a guy coming from this level. He saw school. They were interested in him. They liked him. They stuck with him. When kind of other guys kind of said, okay, there might be something better on the other side. He stuck with the people that said, okay, we believe in you. And I think that's his mantra with us, and I think that was his mantra with Iona. So, it's just the dynamics of it has just changed. It's when you were getting recruited and I was getting recruited, it's not the same. It's totally different. Totally different.
It sounds like that it's become so difficult now that you're asking high school kids or high school level kids to make adult decisions. And, I'm sure that, when you're recruiting, I mean, were you looking at Toby's parents, to say, okay, I can deal with this young man because his parents are great people?
1,000%.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever had a basketball. I've talked to Toby's dad on the phone about other things, his mom. We've never had a basketball discussion. Like, Toby's dad's never called me and said, hey, he's not playing. Like, what's going on?
Right.
We've never had the discussion. And I think the other day I was talking to my assistants and we were going through, like, we've had some all-league guys. Obviously Toby's an All-American. Like, how many of those guys did anybody reach out to us about? 0. You know what I'm saying? 0, because you got to be able to figure it out on your own, right? Because as coaches, we're all trying to win. We're always going to put the best guys on the court. It's all about competition. It's all about, what's best for the team. So, and a lot of those guys just figure that out. But, you know how it is nowadays. The guys that, as so-and-so's reaching out, so-and-so's reaching out, well, they haven't figured something out. As a coach, you have to take the calls, right? You have to talk to the families. But I think there's something to be said for that of, once you go to college, man, like, you got to start figuring out. You got to be more independent. It's you against me. I was the best player on my team. You were probably the best player on your team. You were the best player on your high school team. So now you got competition every day. All right? So the guys that figured out, the guys that have a lot of success. And Toby was one of the guys that did that.
That's tough to deal with, Toby. I mean, this is, like you said, you've got to figure out there is I guess you would call it a rational selfishness to the sport. It's team sport.
Yeah.
But if you're not selfish enough to say, I need to give the best version of me, and that means competing against you, right? It becomes tough.
Yeah.
You're holding down a lot of what could be jealousy in the beginning.
Yep.
And you're just trying to figure it out for yourself so you can compete and not be so emotional about being jealous.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I went through it, and now you get to your junior year, that coaches are already thinking, I got to recruit over him. Who else is coming in, right? You done had 2 years, right? They're expecting you to do well in your junior year.
Yeah.
So you have to put up, and now the freshman that's coming in might be pretty good. Now you got to bust his butt, right?
Exactly.
Just so the coach remembers who you are. That's
the hard part about, sports in general, but especially in basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 6-7 months, you're body on body every single day, if you got to compete every day. You got to compete every day. And Toby's first year, he was playing, you were there.
Yeah.
I mean, we had some pretty good front court guys. And, I think that year helped him get better because he was competing against those guys. And Toby never walked in my office and said, hey, coach, I need to play more. Never. And he played a great role his freshman year. I think he played 18 minutes a game, had a great freshman year. And then after that, just kind of took off.
Being at this point, and it's so hard for me to believe, and I'm sure for you that was 4 years ago.
I know. That is true.
And just how fast it goes by. And I try to tell this to kids all the time, high school kids, like, it goes by so fast, man. When you look back on your time at Brandeis now, like, what are the things that stand out to you the most? What is what are the things that you think they're going to stay with you long after the ball stops bouncing for you? And
yeah, I mean, really just my team and the coaches. I mean, he'll probably say I was in the office probably too much.
Yeah, I love how you were in there every day. I loved it.
But yeah, I mean, just my teammates and my coaches, man. At the end of the day, you always are going to win and lose games. And as much as I hate losing, probably more than anyone, like it's what really sticks with you is the relationships you built. And I mean, especially after my freshman year, we had a big age gap because everyone had COVID years. But you know, I'm still close with some of those guys. But really, my sophomore year, the guys that came in, I mean, those are probably like my best friends for life. So it kind of hasn't set in yet that I'm gonna be leaving, but really just the relationships and memories that we made, in the 4 years. That's really what's gonna stick with me the most. Really, not even really basketball stuff, just my teammates and my coaches.
Were there moments for you in your career that you think back on that were sort of make or break moments, that were hard times? It's you hear all different kinds of. I don't think everyone's different and everyone's beliefs are different. I'm not a everything happens for a reason kind of person, but there are plenty of people that are, and I would totally respect that. I know that there's a great quote. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if I'm gonna get 100% right, but from Dr. King, where he said that the true measure of a man is not where he stands at times of basically when everything's comfortable, but they're at times of adversity and when you're facing stuff. And I think he also said something to the extent of like adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. Like you kind of see who you really are when you're in a situation where everything isn't going good. Are there moments for you that you think back on that sort of that fork in the road and you could have gone left, you could have gone right, or they were hard times, but they showed you who you really were and they were sort of defining moments for you during your time in college?
Yeah, so I missed my whole junior year, basically. I tore my labrum in my hip. And that was probably the hardest time. Everyone knows injuries suck, but it was my first kind of like major injury where I missed time. And it was coming off my sophomore year where I had a pretty good year, and I was ready and expecting to, have the same, if not a better year. And I played the first 3 games, and after the game I couldn't walk. I was immobile, and deciding to get surgery was a really, really hard decision. Because like you mentioned, everyone's trying to recruit over you, and I mean, I had to take basically 12 months off of basketball, and it's being pretty much my first love. It was kind of unthinkable at the time, and I went through some pretty dark times during that year because you're just sitting on the sidelines. But what really helped me is just continuing to be around the game, and I think it helped me see the game in a different way. I mean, we had practice at 6 a.m. every morning, but I would still go just to be around the game, be around the guys, and I think it really helped me kind of regain that chip on my shoulder. Coming off my sophomore year, it was kind of, I probably had a little too much ego, like, oh, I had a good year, I'm that guy, I'm better than all of you, which you have to believe to an extent, but it gets to a point where it's a little too much, and I think getting hurt and having to miss so much time helped me regain the kind of like, oh, I still got to work for all of this. I might be better than you, but I'm going to show you why, not just I'm better than you because I'm here. But yeah, that was definitely a hard time, and I think it really helped me refine the love for the game that I probably didn't have before, I would say.
That is amazing. I think it shows a level of insight that's required in order to continue to play basketball. It definitely reaffirms my belief that you spoke of dark, it was some dark moments, but in those darkest moments when you're looking into the abyss, right?
Yeah.
Like, man, what is going on here? That's where you find that light. That's where you find that love that you're talking about again, and sometimes, I mean, I think, you're speaking about your teammates, you watch them working, it reminds you of, what you love to do, why you did it, right? Because if you're thinking about it, you played because you loved it. That ball, that ball was what made the sound that drew you to it, and, I think as a coach, as players who have played the game, there's nothing better than that sound. For you, Sam, it may have been the crack of a bat or, something like that. Or, you were a multi-sport athlete, right?
Yeah.
So, but that basketball, man, I mean, that thing just holds you.
And just to piggyback off Toby's year with that, so Toby, we travel, we fly to all our games. So my thought process was, I'm not going to leave this guy behind. We're going to take him.
He's everywhere on their game.
I said we're going to take him with us, and then we be playing the game, and he be the guy going crazy on the bench, where referees would come out and say, "Yo, man, you got to calm that guy down." That's how excited he was for his teammates, though, and I thought that was something to be said for that. You know what I mean? And there were times that he was on the court. The guy would hit a three, he'd be on the court. Mm-hmm. He was so excited. So, for that definitely made me feel better, because that meant that he was in a pretty good place mentally. Because as a player, I went through injuries, tore my ACL. Yeah, it's a player. You go into all of us have been there. You go into a different place. It
really is that when you get hurt and you're suddenly out and you suddenly have to put in all this work, but you can't go game day immediately and see it pay off. It's like, torn. I had ACL, Achilles, everything. I've too many surgeries, man. I hate thinking about it.
We joined the club. We have the same.
Yeah. But like when it's like 10, 12 months before you're going to be back, like that is a long. You think about the shot in a movie where like it's a static shot, but it gets further and further away to be like, it's pretty daunting. Like that's what it'll feel like. And the dark times and everything. Am I ever going to be the same player again? And like, how am I, going to respond to this? And those are dark times. And also a lot of schools and for coaches, you're sort of in a, well, we gotta figure out how to be good now. So your focus shifts because our best player or one of our best players, he's out. Now how do we regroup? And it can be really hard for a player to not get totally lost in the shuffle of like, hey man, I was at the center of everything, and now like I'm on the far peripheries. They're focusing on winning today, and I'm not even gonna be a part of that for a year. Like, Gene, how did you juggle? All right, well now I got to focus almost even more on the players I have, because we're dealing with losing someone who was like sort of at the center of what we're doing, without that guy feeling like as soon as he can't win a game for you, he no longer matters to you. Right. And that is a thing that a lot of players I struggle with in my career. As soon as I got hurt, feeling like, wow, I no longer even matter. And I got hurt for these coaches, trying to go above and beyond. And now that I got hurt, I'm an afterthought. Nobody cares. So how did you juggle that? Like, well, we got to have even longer nights and got to redevelop this team's identity right now, but also be like, but I don't want to, have this kid get lost and not just have him check out on the team and look to go elsewhere, but also just because you care about him as a player. So how'd you navigate that?
I think the great thing about that year, we just had a great group of guys. Just like we had a group of guys that really cared about each other. So when Toby went down, like all the guys were really concerned about Toby as the coaches, right? But I think, I'll never forget that day when that happened either, because I went home, I was like, we might not break 70 the rest of the year. But then I had to go, okay, but we have guys that are better tested, that been playing against Toby all season and all practice. Exactly right. Now we got to change our identity. So then we became the best defensive team in the league that year. But I think having Toby around played a big role, because it just allowed the guys to be a little bit more like, okay, we see how Toby's handling being out for the year. We got to go out and play basketball and just give our best. I think that was a big factor, because Toby was away during Christmas break when everybody was home, got his surgery. A lot of kids would have been like, you know what, I'm going to stay back with my family. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to come back when school's, I'm ready to go to school. Toby came back, he was on our first trip. Yeah, crutches. And he's hobbling around and he's at practice. I think that gave us hope, and it gave us the ability to move forward, and it helped us have a solid season. Because, again, as a coach, like you said, I had no idea where we were going to go with this, because coming into the year, everything was centered around, obviously, him on the offensive end, and this guy playing this role, that guy. Everybody had to change roles, and then we had to develop a new identity. But I think him showing us that, hey man, like, you guys got to keep pushing forward and just keep playing without me, was a big factor into the guys. We had a guy that we took as a transfer. We had no idea what he was going to do, right? He ended up being an all-league honorable mention. I didn't see that coming. So everybody just kind of stepped up, but I think a lot of that came off his strength to kind of just keep pushing forward.
Toby, this is really it's a testament to who you are as a young man. I can only imagine how, you tearing your labrum. Now you've got to look at this. You've got to look at this as you see the side of the business, okay? And then I think as a player, you come to the realization that, okay, you know what? You've got to deal with thinking about, am I going to be the same guy when I come back? These other guys are getting better, right? And the competition that you've got in your mind is you're competing against yourself, against your worst thoughts, right? And you're like, oh, I got to get back in the gym, but you can't get back in the gym because you got to rest, right? And you got to heal. And, your coach is sitting there like, look, I don't know if I hope he's available. I don't know if he is. What's plan B? Who am I going to recruit? And these are the things that the kids, when they look at all the lights and the cameras, they don't understand what goes on beyond what they see. These are the deeper parts of the game that as human beings, we have to deal with. Tell me what, if you don't mind sharing, what were your thoughts at that time? What was your thought process? It's clear that you wanted to be seen, right? You want to be, I'm here, coach, I'm in front of you. And I'm sure, Gene, you're saying, you know what? That's what I need. I've got more faith in him now because he's showing up at times, where it's darkest for him. But what were your real thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. The first couple games where I wasn't playing, I was not the guy jumping. Even my family would text me after the games. My dad would be like, "What are you doing?" Because I was at the end of the bench just like sulking. And I think that was, when I first realized like, wow, I'm not going to be on the court for a long time. So, I mean, you start thinking crazy thoughts like, am I even good at this sport? Like, will I ever even play again? Stuff like that. But I mean, I think for me, it's just, obviously I was constantly around and couldn't get rid of me. And that's just kind of who I am as a person just because I love the game so much, even if I can't play, like I just need to be at least on the gym floor. I mean, I would shoot form shots every day, probably for like a couple hours, just because I needed to have the basketball in my hand. But yeah, I mean, I really struggled, especially near the end when I started, actually being able to move, and I was like, this is not how I was moving a year ago. So I mean, it was really wow. Like I don't know if I'm gonna be the same player I was. But I think for me, it came back to the systems I had in place. I was like, you know what, it might not seem okay right now, but I have full belief in the systems and the work that I put in every day, and I had a great supporting cast around me. I just continued to trust the work, and maybe even did a little more than I probably should have on my body, but I feel like that's just who I was raised to be by my family, and that's the type of person I am. So
how hard was it for you to stay calm during your rehab?
It was tough. I mean, especially once you get out of crutches and you're moving around, and like my mind is like, I feel like I could go run a full sprint right now. But you can barely walk. And like, yeah, I think for me, especially near the end, it was, I'm ready to go dunk on somebody. I'm ready to do all this. And, just having to realize that, I was lucky to have surgery during the season, so I wasn't, pushing for a quick return. I really, had to take a step back from that and look outside in and say, if I take my time, if I, really heal this thing up correctly, I have a chance to, come back better than I was before. So I think for me, it was having to take a more mature approach and realize, there's no need to rush things. Let's try and get stronger than I was before, and that'll allow me to continue to work and reach my goals.
Now that nothing that you say can be held against you, you have to run laps or run sprints or anything.
Oh, no.
You can say whatever now. Can't be benched by him. How would you describe Coach Bain as your coach? Because I think coaches at any level, but especially at the high school and then the college level, for those that are good enough, can make all the difference. I can't honestly say I ever had I think, a great coach. When you look at the great coach being, they know the game, they can get the best out of you, and they genuinely care about you off the court. At the college level, I certainly did. At high school level, I don't think I did either. What would you say about Coach Bain as a coach? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, coming to Brandeis, I had never really been coached super hard by anybody but my dad. And, it's different when it's your dad, because it's like, oh, it's my dad. He's just going to yell at me no matter what. So that was new for me. And, he definitely coached me hard. Like, there was days where I would go into practice and be like, damn, what I do? Like, why me? And I think that was hard my freshman year to kind of, because as a player, you think, oh, I'm working hard. And you're probably not to your full extent. So, I mean, it was definitely hard. And, there was times where, you get taken out the game, you don't play, or, he's yelling at me at practice, and I'm like, I'm not even doing anything wrong. And I'm lucky enough to have a dad who, like he said, would never call him and be like, why is my son not playing? It'd probably be the opposite, like, stop playing my son. And, I can't sound like I'm going to him like, Dad, and he's telling me how great I am. He's telling me the same thing that Coach Bain is telling me. So, I mean, I think that was big. And, I mean, he'll do anything for me and any of the guys on the team off the court. I mean, I've never felt, been in a place where I felt so supported off the court. I mean, like he said, I was always in his office just talking. And, like, he probably knows things about me that he probably shouldn't. So, I mean, yeah, it's been, I mean, that's the reason so after my sophomore year, full honesty, people were telling me, oh, you should leave. I had a good enough year to where I probably could have gone to the next level. And, I thought about it, but at the end of the day, it was, he took a chance on me, and he's coached me to become the player that I am today. Why would I leave for someone who just now sees me? He saw who I could be, out of high school, and helped me become that player, and supported me off the court, on the court, and, built relationships with me and my family. So, why would I ever leave that? So that's a big part of the reason I stayed is because of this guy and, the people around. So I have probably no bad things to say, I would say.
Coach, what does it mean to hear that?
Yeah, it means a lot because, as you coach in this generation, it's everybody's different. Everybody has a different outlook in terms of how the game should be played, how their roles should be, what they're trying to get out of it. But I think as a coach, you're trying to win, right? That's the ultimate goal. If you coach any sport, especially team sport, you have to do what's best for the team. So I think, it just means a lot coming from him because I coach him extremely hard. There's a lot of guys in our program right now that think I coach them hard, but I coach them hard, but I love them hard, right? Off the court, as I do with all my guys. So I think once you get past that notion that, coach is screaming at you, coach ain't screaming at you. Coach is trying to motivate you. Mm-hmm. Coach is trying to get you better. Coach sees a certain potential that you have that we're trying to get you to reach, but it's nothing personal. Because at the end of the day, when we get off the court, oh, you need a ride? All right, where do I got to take you? All right, you need, because that's what we're here for, So I think once players separate that and understand that, they fully give themselves to you and allow you to coach them to be the best version of themselves.
It's just so hard for young players to be able to do that, especially now.
Yes.
You can't separate that because their reality is that they're being abused.
Yes.
It's way too not. I'm listening to Paige Fisser's talk about.
Yeah, with Gino. Yeah.
Gino was as tough.
Oh.
Okay. But for those young women, I mean, she talked about her process and how as she got older, she started to understand now she needed the personality to deal with it, right?
Yep.
And I mean, I think that's always a testament to what you're saying. You believed in Coach Gene because of how you were able to communicate with him, and you were willing to take that, which could be termed criticism, constructive criticism, in a way where it helped you, where you didn't feel as though that, you were being chastised. That's awesome, man. It is. It's just not easy for young players to do, and it's not easy for coaches who have been raised by old school coaches to sit back. I mean, you look like even like the coach from Denver just got fired.
Yeah, Mike Malone. Yeah.
All-time winningest coach there. How do you fire a guy like that? You lost the locker room?
Yep.
Really? What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's, man, kudos to the both of you, man. This is the story of a wonderful relationship.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time. Seriously, if you embrace being uncomfortable, you're gonna make it so far. Because even me right now, as a 47-year-old man, I'm never comfortable.
Right.
I tell these guys that all the time. I could have the best day. I'm just never comfortable because I just know, I'm just always like on edge. I probably shouldn't live that way, right? It's not good, but that's just the way I am. So I think as an athlete, if you always embrace that, you're always going to do well, right? If you just, I had 30, oh man, I can relax, right? That was yesterday, right? So if you get that mindset ready, we talked about it all year, is mindset. If your mindset is that, you're going to be very successful in everything that you do. And I think he's embraced that.
So, Toby, what are you feeling? What are your expectations of the next step at Iona? What do you feel like your role is going in there? What do you feel like your goals are going in there? I mean, you're 4 years older than the last time you were going through this sort of like into the unknown space at a new school and a new program and a new staff. And you only got 1 year there. It's not like you're going in and like, I can establish myself for a year. I can kind of have my growing pains. For those 1 year transfers, man, it is like hit the ground running. And then, just what are you feeling and sort of what do you see as your role and what are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, the coaching staff there, Coach Giroux is the new hire, and, Coach Pat Wallace, who's actually from North Carolina, they've really instilled a kind of belief in me that, they believe that I can be the player I want to be. And, obviously everything is earned, not given. Mm-hmm. So, it doesn't matter what anyone says, what they say. And they know that too. Like, you can't promise anyone minutes. And I know that. And I think part of the reason I chose Iona is because, they have a coaching staff that believes in me and wants to push me to be a better player. And, I think if I continue to become that better player, I will have an opportunity to be on the floor and, help the team win. And that's my main goal. I had a list of 3 things when I was thinking about choosing a school, and it's, will I have an opportunity to play? Is there a good culture? And, will we win? And Iona checked all those boxes. And, I think for me, just I love basketball so much. I'm excited, for a new opportunity. I'm excited to, get to work, and it's different than D3. I'm excited to, get there with the guys and the coaches. But, I'm just ready to go help a team win, and, like I tried to do here.
Just to have a really good coach.
Oh, I know.
She was a player. I believe he was all A10.
He was good.
And you're fortunate.
I really am.
Gene, what do you feel like Toby could do at the Division I level? What kind of player do you think he could be?
And we talked about it. I think I told Toby that find a school that fits you as a player and has a specific role for you, right? Because obviously he's going to a different level of, athleticism, right? The level of practice is going to be intense. The competition is going to be different. But there's always a niche for you if you understand your role. And I think Toby is smart enough to figure that out. So that's why I'm excited, and I can't wait to go to a game at Iona and first time he subs in the game, or if he's starting, I'm gonna be the first guy supporting him. Just like I told him when the first day we were recruiting him. So I think Toby's gonna be fine. I mean, he's 6'8". He can shoot the ball from anywhere on the court. If you can shoot the ball, they'll find a place for you. And like you said, he's got a great coach who has a vision how he wants to play and how he wants to use Toby. I think that's extremely important because, you see a lot of kids, they just want to go to a school. Well, how do they play? What's your role? And I think that's how Toby handled this whole recruitment process of understanding that. I thought that was really, really smart on his end to, he figured out his niche, where they can use him, where he can have success. So I think he's going to be very good at that level. I'm excited. Hopefully he doesn't forget about us little guys down at D3, you know how that goes, right?
I've seen it before.
When you show up to the game, like, the last guy you talk to, that type of stuff. Hopefully that doesn't change. No, it won't. It won't.
Never.
It won't.
For you, a question that I have, Gene, is I know every year in coaching, I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do the sort of rebuild every year, especially in the transfer era, which I fully support players getting money, players having the ability to leave. I think the secret that people have wanted to ignore for the longest time is that the power dynamics have been so skewed. Coaches routinely run guys off teams at the scholarship level that the guy may have done nothing wrong, not been a problem, but a coach just goes, well, there's a better guy available. It's a 4-year, it's renewable every year. There's Scully, pull Scullies, run guys, or a coach leaves for brighter, greener pastures. A new coach comes in, wants to bring in his own guys. So I'm fully behind players. One, I think if they're at a school that's making money or a school that decides it can pay, they should have that ability, because the players are the ones that these, Big Five schools that are the BCS level schools, that they're the reason why they make millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
And I think they should have the freedom to transfer when coaches can do the same. But it still doesn't make your job easy. I don't envy you being like, okay, well, looking at having to rebuild and reload and whatever. But especially with a player like Toby that's been such a key performer, you look at the stats, but also just key personality and play. Like, how do you replace that now? How do you do that?
I don't think you can replace that. I think you have to now have a different vision in terms of, how you want your team to look. I mean, you still want to play the same. You still want to do the same things, but you have to be honest with yourselves. Like last year, we were a high-powered offensive team in Division III. We were, I think, number 2 in our league, number 6 in the country, or whatever it may be. That might not be the case next year. So what does our team look like? So we have to recruit to that. I think it's the same for every coach now. I mean, it's trickling down to our level where a lot of our kids are going, like I said, Toby's situation is different. He graduated, he got that degree, and he's got that extra year. You got guys that are at like these high academic, even the Ivy League, that are leaving after 2 years, right? And chasing that.
And that's wild to me. I mean, we could have a whole other episode talking about that, but that is, to me, everyone make their own decision. But I'll see some of the Ivy guys and where they transfer to, and you go, how much money are they actually getting to be walking away from a Harvard degree?
Exactly.
When, even if like a Harvard or a Print, they don't give scholarships, the aid packages are out there for the world. There's been all kinds of articles done. You're paying 10% of this, to go to Harvard and walk away with a Harvard degree is getting $100K for 2 years, so $200K total before taxes. Let's say, just using that as an example. Is that really worth walking away from a degree from a Harvard or a Princeton where what you'll earn over your lifetime? So it's wild to me, some of the decisions. Like if you're going to a school that's going to pay you, 7 figures to go there, that's a no-brainer. But some of the other stuff, like what you're walking away from versus where you're going, it's a wild
situation. Like I said, it's not, coaches have to adjust, because you talk about it all the time. Hey, you just said it, coaches used to leave, right? And they get a better job and leave. And these 12 guys wouldn't have any coach, and now they'd have to figure out what their next move is. So I think fair is fair. I think I'm all for the kids getting paid, but I think there has to be some organization with it. Hopefully we'll, at some point the NCAA will get to that. But right now it's the Wild Wild West. It's the Wild Wild West.
I got one more question, and maybe you can give me some insight on this. High school players now I believe are at a serious risk of not being recruited. One, they're too young, so they're not going to be able to compete against, as we spoke about earlier, the new JUCO rules. I think that high-level colleges will now want to take an unbelievably talented high school kid, stash him in JUCO, so he gets some experience, and then bring him in and have 4 years with him. So that's 6 years of college basketball. Right. You're a grown man when you walk into college. You've had 2 great years in JUCO, because you'll probably go to a JUCO that's reputable. So in this trickle-down effect, right? So you've got D1 kids dropping down to, a lot of them drop down to D2. Right? D2 kids are now saying, you know what, I'm getting pushed out, but there was a D3 school like Brandeis that would have been great for me. So now they're reaching out to you.
Yep.
But you see that, okay, well, I may not have as many years with you, but I see a high school kid who has potential. If he gets it right, I'll have 4 years with him, or maybe, maybe I'll have 4 years.
Maybe.
That is an unbelievably difficult process to have to work through year after year. What do you tell the high school kids now? Because prep schools are basically being pushed out too, because I don't know how much they offer.
Yep.
Right? They're not preparing for college anymore. They're preparing to play.
Yep.
I don't know. It's tough.
Well, the hard part about recruiting the high school kids now, especially in our league, the really good players you want now, they try to push you off because they're trying to wait for that scholarship. If you get what I'm saying, where, well, the Division I's, they're not giving that scholarship away right now because they're waiting for you to get in the transfer portal. So it's kind of like it's a dicey situation. So for us, we're never gonna go. I'm never gonna be like, oh, we're gonna have 12 transfers. But you look at the team in our league, the last probably 4 years, Toby, who's won the league. 3 of them, or all 4 of them, the starting 5 was grad transfers. NYU in case the year before won it, 5 grad transfers. NYU this year went to the national championship game. They had 8 grad transfers. So I think you have to have a balance now, unfortunately, where, because you got, they had a couple guys on their team at 25, 26.
Yeah.
So I can't roll out with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We got no chance. So I think you have to have a balance, and you have to, have a system in terms of a lot of transparency with your guys, a lot of being honest with your guys. We just had another guy go in the portal who's, he's looking for, a higher situation, which I think is great. But the great thing about it, he was transparent with me, at the end of the year. So now you get a chance to say, you know what, if he doesn't come back, at least we can go get a guy, that can fill his role. I think that's the domino effect of the whole thing, But to me, it's really getting out of hand. It's because there's a lot of kids that they're jumping in the portal. They have no reason. They don't understand why they're going in the portal, right? They see Toby go, Toby, I'm jumping in the portal. Yeah. You see a lot of that. So hopefully, the value of the education doesn't get lost in this process, right? Which I think it has, right? Yeah. Let's be honest. Nobody talks about getting a degree anymore because everybody's talking about, getting paid and going to the portal. I mean, like I said, I'm all for the kids getting paid. They deserve it. They're bringing all the money. Yeah. I don't know how much money the NCAA made this year, but I'm sure it was in the billions of dollars. Yep. So they definitely deserve a cut. But now it's, it's all about, hey, getting it under control as we move forward.
Well, guys, thank you so much both for joining us today. It was Gene. It's always awesome. Toby, it was great having you on here.
Guys.
I'll definitely check out an Iona game this year, man. That'll be
deals, man.
Hopefully he'll send us a couple T-shirts,
right?
Yes, sir. Obviously, yes, sir. They get unlimited gear at that level.
I know, it's wild. Yeah,
we'll see.
I'm still hitting up Northeastern all the time. Hey, can you guys send me a T-shirt? So I gotta.
I went down there. I went to the bookstore and bought one because my niece goes there. So.
But thank you guys once again, man. It's Gene. We should make this a recurring thing.
Nah, this was great, man. This is great. I love talking hoops and with you guys. I mean, shit, it doesn't get any better. Excuse my language.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Awesome.